It's the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. For more on the Seminoles, including Osceola's coverage from veteran Seminole insiders, message boards, Osceola virtual happy hours, and more, go to theosceola.com.
Welcome to the Seminole Sidelines podcast. I'm Bob Ferranti, filling in for Patrick Burnham, who's a little bit under the weather this week, but we've got a pretty full roundtable, and Pat has helped us out with the game plan. So we're going to kind of execute the game plan to the best of our abilities this evening. We hope you enjoy the show. Coming off a pretty big Florida State win, 31-28 over the Canes. It's been 4 years since they've beaten a rival, and it was a big win at Doak Campbell on Saturday night. We have Mark Salva, former Florida State football player, graduate assistant, and assistant coach at South Carolina, course publisher Jerry Cutts, and Charles Fishbein, our recruiting analyst. Gentlemen, I appreciate you all joining us. Thank you.
It's great. It's great. Are we going no huddle fast break today on this podcast?
This is old school.
There's going to be a lot of audibles. Old
school fast break.
I am going to clearly signal to you, Fish.
Right.
So you'll run the fly pattern. Okay?
All right. I can run the 9 route. I may not get too far after 1, but I mean, I could go for 1.
We should run through it.
I got one good 9. I always had good hands. I had great hands, but I was the slowest guy out there. So.
Well, it's good because Mark's shoulder's not strong enough to throw it very far.
We're just a bunch of lunch pail guys.
All right. Well, we're off to a good start. I can see this is good stuff. You guys are going to bring it. So let's start big picture before we get down into the game. Big picture, Jerry, you like to say 30,000 foot view. Let's go to Mark first. I mean, what does this kind of win mean? Coach Norvell just turned 40 a month ago, young staff, young team, mostly freshmen and sophomores with some transfers. But what does this mean for a young coaching staff and a young team?
Wow, it is such a relief to see the results of all the work you put in. You know, you come in to change a culture. You know, we don't have to rehash about what a mess we were in and what the shape of the program was in when he got here. But the energy and effort it takes to turn it around is tremendous, right? I mean, these guys, I can see the results. They work so hard and you know, with every kid, with every drill and every day, trying to drive this thing and get it turned around and create good habits and create a good culture, you know, recruit like crazy every day. And there's just so much work that goes into it. And for the last 18 months, it's just been a grind for these guys. I know what it is. I lived it. I mean, we had to go through a similar thing at South Carolina, trying to turn the culture out. It wasn't near as bad or as intense as what Coach Norvell and the staff is having to go through. But I can just tell you, it's 100-hour weeks. It's sleeping in your office. It's on the phone. It's watching so much film. It's meeting with players constantly, trying to, you know, talk to them and try to get them in the mindset of being successful and what it takes to be successful, and just drilling that every day. And when you do that and the results are short and lacking, it's so hard. And to keep encouraging these guys, because look, I think we can all agree, these guys fight and fight and fight. You know, they've been so competitive, and, you know, the results haven't quite been there until of late. You know, I take NC State and I make that kind of, that was an outlier because of the flu, but, you know, I mean, but then to get your rival, to have the recruits we had in, to have the fans doing what they, you know, Doak rocking like it's supposed to be, you know, and then to get the result with a fourth quarter comeback after face-to-face on the middle of the field to start the fourth quarter. I mean, that is such a huge validation of everything they're doing. And it really speaks to the direction of the program. And it gives you, I can imagine there's a lot of juice in that building right now, from coaches, players, everybody.
It's good energy. And we'll kind of get into the good points of as far as recruiting with Fish in a moment here. But Jerry, I want to kind of kick it toward you, because the business side, the fan side is a huge factor here. 70,000 fans. It was the biggest home crowd. There's a lot of great energy up there. You were in the Champions Club, kind of watching from your seat where you like to watch in the end zone. But I'm also curious beyond the fan side too, the business side. Season ticket renewals for 2022 are coming out. This is a huge win, big picture financially for Florida State Athletics, for the Seminole boosters. I've kind of hit you with a lot of broad things there, but what are kind of your views as far as fan perspective and the business perspective of a big win like this?
You can't put a price tag on it. It's absolutely huge for all the reasons that you stated in the question. I lived it, like Mark lived it, rebuilding a program at South Florida and all the hours you put into it. Towards the end of the Bowden era, our season ticket sales fell from about 45,000 down to 22,000. And it's just a grind to rebuild it, because once people leave the stadium, they don't, they develop other habits, and, they find other things to do with their time. And so when you do get them in the stadium and you have an experience like we had against Notre Dame, and you fall just short, I mean, it's a great thing that we could play Notre Dame into overtime. It gave fans some hope. But the question remained, can you push it over the top? Can you beat a rival? Can you beat a top 25 team? And I think that's always a question. And I've always believed that, as the guy that sold the annual fund and helped the ticket office sell season tickets, hope precedes sales. You've got to give the fans hope that this thing has turned in the right direction and that they should invest in your product. Well, I can tell you, being in that Champions Club the other night, sitting there with Wally Burnham and watching from between the goalposts where we like to be, man, the energy among the fan base was phenomenal. It was just like it used to be a long time ago, back when Mark played. It was like the dynasty era. I mean, emotion. Now, I'm thinking to myself, this is an epic Miami game. Yet neither one of the teams is in the top 10. And so, but it still had that same feeling to the fans, who were crying and they were hugging each other afterwards. So yeah, it's really important. It should propel season ticket sales.
I think of the unranked team battles between Florida State and Miami. This was up there. We remember the ranked games when they were top 5s and top 10s. This was pretty remarkable, down to the wire, down to 26 seconds to go. Fish, we've talked about energy. We've talked about hope, the business of it, but hey, recruiting's the lifeblood too. This was a huge recruiting weekend. Guys taking a lot of official visits, some unofficials too, some commitments coming back, and yet again enjoying just the atmosphere, just because they want to be where they're going to be playing next year. So the recruiting impact, I think, is probably immeasurable. But what's kind of your read? What are you hearing too from recruits?
Yeah, before I jump into that, the one thing is, it's always been said, is if you're going to go 2-10, the two teams you got to beat are Miami and beat Florida. Like, fans, I've always said fans will put up with losses and building and this and that. But if you beat your rivals, and they beat Miami the other day, it takes a lot of pressure off of coaching staffs. You look at Jim Harbaugh, he could go 10-2 this year, but if he doesn't beat Ohio State and Michigan State, people are going to want him fired with a 10-2 season. So this was a big win for Norvell, because everything he's talked about, it all seems great. And they've had a lot of moral victories this year, but they put it over the top finally. It's like you were thinking in that fourth quarter, oh, here we go again. They were down by 8. Everything was going against them. But from a recruiting standpoint, I've said over and over, if you've been in that stadium, and it has nothing to do with being biased towards Florida State. I was there for the Oklahoma game. I remember the Clemson game with E.J. Manuel, and they came back. The Notre Dame game where the illegal pick play. When that stadium's rocking and you're a recruit, it's a very easy sell. at Florida State to a recruit. I don't care. I've taken people up there that have no football. They're not football guys. I had a friend that I brought up there that was from Canada, and I remember going to Doak, and the place was rocking, and everything about it is very eye-pleasing to a recruit. It's not a hard sell. So when Florida State is doing what they need to do, it sells itself to the recruits. And I think it will have an impact. Listen, they're not going to land every kid they had in the stadium the other night. But to me, my concern was, I felt, will they land MJJ and will they land Armella? I think that this win solidified their recruitments for the two of them. And I think they're two of the biggest recruits. I think they'll land those two. A lot of the other kids, they get home, the visit wears off, and then they get back to business. So if they pull those two, to me, that's the key to the class. They finish out the class with those two, and they could go out and maybe pull one of these running backs. I really like the kid, the Javante Barnes kid, which is crazy. As somebody interviewed him today, and the kid said he's originally from Florida. That's great news that kid's from Florida, because he reminds me of DeMarco Murray. You saw it the other day. They still need a big-time back and one big-time receiver. They just need playmakers. It's like the offense came out, got 17, but it's like they bogged down again. It's like they just need that. When they had Dalvin, you knew like a game got close, we hand the ball to Dalvin. All of a sudden, it didn't matter if it was Clemson, if it was Miami, he came through. And if they have that one thing, if Norvell is able to get that one big-time back that can help them out, and it will make a big difference. And I think that was a big win the other night, because Javante Barnes was there, the running back from IMG that's committed to Penn State was there. They just need to land one of those two kids. The one kid from IMG is the top back in the state. The other kid's one of the top backs in the country. You land one of those, it takes a lot of pressure off the play calling. It takes a lot of pressure off that offense. They don't need if the quarterback is not going to be a star, it takes a lot of pressure off him as well, not to have to make those big plays at the end of the game that usually he won't make, So I think overall is a great experience, and everything I've heard and spoken to people is that the recruiting couldn't have gone better as far as the visit. But you know how that is. Like I said, a lot of kids, if it's the first time they've ever been there, and a lot of these kids have made up their mind, so go home. But Armella and MJJ, I think Marvin Jones Jr., two of the most important recruits in their class. I think that win solidified the two of them. And I think Florida State's going to end up pulling those two kids out at the end, and their recruiting class will end on a high note.
And if those guys sign, it would appear to be a top 10 or close to a top 10 class. And you've got the guys to kind of rebuild.
Bob, I know people bring up rankings. To me, I look at it like that, but also a lot of times, how many times have you seen a class, especially a Florida State class, that's ranked top 5 or 10, but it has holes in it? This class, the rankings don't matter if you don't fill every position from quarterback all the way down to DB. Like, you have to have it balanced. And those classes that have holes in them end up coming back, and you pay the price down the road. That's why Armella and Marvin Jones Jr., listen, they're going to lose number 11. Number 11 won them the game the other night. I mean, Jermaine Johnson is a flat out stud. He's going to be a top 10 to 15 pick or first round pick. How do you replace that? They don't have that on their roster right now. I don't care how good the coaches are or they think they are. We know number 11 changed the whole dynamics of that game. I mean, Mark will tell you that kid dominated Miami up front. It ruined them in the first half and most of the game. That's why you need Marvin Jones Jr. You need that one elite pass rusher that it helps the back end. Your secondary doesn't have to cover as long. And a kid like that, and that's one thing, I don't think it's a difficult thing to teach a kid, especially as a freshman. Hey, listen, put your hand in the dirt and just rush up the field and get pressure on the quarterback.
I guarantee you. I remember we signed John Abraham at South Carolina, right? And as a freshman, he ran a 4.3 when he reported as a freshman, right? 6'5", 240 pounds back then. And that's all we did with him. We put it as a true freshman. We just put him at the end and said, "Go get him, Tiger.
Go get him."
And I remember we played Georgia on the 7:30 ESPN game, and he must have had 3 sacks as a true freshman that game. So that, to your point, when you have a talent like that, difference makers. It's about difference makers. You need a difference maker on just about every level of your team, right? You need a playmaker on the offensive side. You need difference makers up front, and you need on the defensive line and in the back end of your defense. You need guys that are difference makers, and those are the guys that you can lean on and scheme everything else around them.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, I watched Oregon the other night, and I watched Thibodeau. I mean, he literally wrecked Washington State by himself. You don't see those guys. That's why they're in such high demand. Is because number 11 has listen, nothing against the DN coach at Florida State. I think he's done a very good job. I want to give these guys, that kid can make any coach look good. He is that. It's amazing how good number 11 is. Like, he's the best pass rusher they've probably had, as good as Brian Burns is. This kid may even be better because he's bigger. You could do more with him. He's going to be able to move inside in the NFL on pass rush downs. You're going to be able to move this kid around from left end to right end to all over the field. And you just, those guys, you can't pay enough for a kid like that.
Well, that's why they're the highest paid guy. That's why left tackle's the highest paid. Defensive ends. Right?
Wait a second. How good is Georgia that they could lose this kid and Tyreek Stevenson, who's like Miami's best DB, and they're rolling still? Like, how good is Georgia recruiting that they lose those two kids and they're still better than not all the teams in the country? That's how good Georgia's recruiting. That number 11 was basically a castaway.
My wife Julie listens to me and goes, "Yeah, he's pretty good, isn't he?" I said, "Yeah, he couldn't even get on the field at Georgia."
Tell Georgia we'll take all their scraps, man. Just hit the Georgia portal. We'll forget the transfer portal. Just call Georgia and say, whoever is in the portal, just send them to Florida State.
Yeah, Kirby Smart, Florida State grad, Dan Lanning, and anybody you guys want to send down this way, please do. All right, well, you guys dove in on defense. Let's stick with defense. We usually go offense, but I feel like defensive performance on Saturday, I think Adam Fuller mentioned it Monday, about as good as you're going to get those first 5 or 6 drives. Jerry, I know you're watching with Wally. What was kind of the view of just the first quarter, the 3 takeaways, but also just how they were in control against Miami early?
Well, the run, the stopping the run, I mean, they did a fantastic job on that. And we had control of stopping Miami's running game totally. The one thing we saw that we worried about was that wheel route. We saw that it was open, and Wally was like, "Oh boy, that wheel route's open. We better close that door," And but they found a way to hurt us later in the game, as Adam said today. We're going to stay on the positive right now, but to that point, in 5 possessions at the end of the second quarter and in the third quarter, they scored 4 touchdowns. And a couple of them were set up on that wheel route. But that's the thing about it. I thought Florida State, the one thing I want to say about it, from a defensive and an offensive standpoint, we matched their emotion, but we didn't exceed it. And if as you all were watching the game, and I don't know how much of it you can see if you're watching from TV, some of our listeners may not have been able to see this, but Miami, after every play, was shoving one of our guys, or, there was some chatter going on, and you'd see Florida State players put their hands out to the side, like waving a white flag. They weren't going to respond. And I think they were very well coached defensively to control their emotion. Match the emotion, play with passion, but don't get involved in any anything that. Yeah, I thought they were really disciplined about that.
Yeah, it was the best coach game by Mike Norvell as a Florida State coach, and I don't think it's even close. I had friends hitting me up. How dare he not go for it on fourth down when they were up by 8 Miami? I'm like, no, that was the first time. I'm like, that's a great decision. I'm like, man, I would have broke my TV if he had gone for it on fourth down. I'm so tired of seeing these coaches go for it on fourth down. They outcoached Miami. Miami was undisciplined. They took it to Miami. I thought they physically beat them up front. and they dominated that game pretty much most of the game. And listen, Miami's very talented. You knew they weren't going to hold that bunch down the whole game, not in a rivalry game like that. At some point, you knew the turnovers would stop and Miami would get the ball moving. But I thought Florida State basically controlled the tempo of the game. You guys asked me what the keys were, shutting down Miami's run game. They shut them down. I said that you have to get Van Dyke off his point. They got Van Dyke off his point and they rattled him early. They did all the keys to the game that they needed a hit on. They did. They got the turnovers on defense. Listen, if FSU had a typical FSU offense, this would have been a blowout. Mike Norvell and this staff have done smoke and mirrors with this team. And like, you have to be happy with what you saw on Friday night, that everything that they've worked on all off season and everything came to fruition. Well, listen,
that's what I was going to say, Fish. I think we're watching this defense grow right before our eyes. I mean, the things they're doing now were absent early in the year. And, early in the game, I don't know if you guys, realize what they're doing. They were playing the run that, Miami was in a lot of spread, a lot of four wides, and we weren't stacking the box. Right. We were in coverage and we were able to stop the run with 5 guys. That was so key. So our defensive line dominating the game early. And look, from where I was sitting in front of my TV, it looked like the defense stimulated the crowd. I mean, the sacks, the turnovers, the hitting, all that. It rattled Van Dyke. That kid was rattled. You could see it in his eyes. You see it when he went to the sideline. He didn't know what to think.
But Mark, when is Florida State, Miami, and Florida at their best? Is when they have an elite level the defense sets the tone for a team like Miami, Florida State. When they can dominate on that defensive side of the ball, get turnovers, it's like an avalanche. That's how you win. You don't win with 10, 12, 15 play drives. You win with a dominant defense, and you're able to push that over to the offense, and the offense is able to get over the top.
Coach Bowden, when we used to go out to Hideaway, which is when the coaching staff would sequester before the season and just go through the thing. Coach Bowden would have a list of notes and things, discussion points. And one of his top notes was the team with the best defensive tackles win. Mm-hmm. That was one of his notes. And so let's talk about that. How are we recruiting this area of our team? Who are our playmakers in this area of the team? Because if we're not good there, then we're not going to be very successful. And he recognized that early. And it's right. When did the dynasty year start? It started when we had a dominant defensive front, and kept going up until we weren't. And that's the key for us. It's the key for Miami too. You said it, when those guys are running and creating havoc and dominating, it makes, because
it energizes the offense. Yeah, it energizes the offense is when the defense is
the whole stadium. Yeah. Right. Because now our defensive front is dominant. And guess what? We have athletes in the back end that can make plays.
And I want to jump in and say one thing. I want to jump in with one thing real quick. I'm not interrupting you guys. And I said it to a friend the other day, why you can't just discard kids. Akeem Dent was a kid that every University of Florida State fan wanted to get rid of over the last 2 years. And he was a highly recruited kid. This is why you can't give up on Travis J. You can't give up on the Damori Tate kid. When you have talented kids, sometimes they develop at a certain pace. And he played his best game as a Seminole.
100%.
Akeem Dent, I want to give him props. He played a phenomenal game. He was all over the field. He was in position to make plays. He didn't get it's just that's this coaching staff. Like I said, I've said all along, I don't think Mike Norvell and his staff aren't good coaches. I've said they're going to win or lose based on recruiting. You guys asked me my opinion. I'm going to say it over and over. They are going to win when they have talent on that team. They've done the coaching side. I'm not going to argue with, because you see it this year, even in the losses, that they're not getting out coached in these games. They're getting out talented at the end of the day.
And some of the odd coaching decisions they make are because
you panic, or you're trying to create something that you may not have.
Something. Yeah. And I like I say, you won't see near as many fourth down attempts once he has the better players.
Yep.
But yeah, that's exactly right. But Fish, what was funny was that last drive to kick the field goal was actually a 14-play drive. I was looking it up. I think I'm right on that, Bob. You might check me on that, but there was a 14-play drive in there, and I think we settled for a field goal. That thing came off, I think, the 3-yard line, and there were only 4 plays of 8 or more yards in that drive. It was just it took 6 minutes.
Hey, you can't go broke taking a profit. Sometimes you got to just take what the defense gives you and just keep moving. I think they had a couple. The drive was probably longer because I think FSU had a couple procedure penalties on that drive, or so. I think they got inside the 5 and got pushed back by either a holding penalty or something. I know there was a couple.
Yeah. So, and Miami had a couple of penalties where there were no play on it. And, but it was a long, sustained drive. And now let's go back in our conversations months ago. We didn't think FSU could be successful with a sustained drive. And here they did it against Miami. Another point, I think we'd have laughed at ourselves a few months ago if we'd have said, hey, let's punt it and depend on our defense to stop them.
I've told you all along, though, I always thought like the defense got a lot of bad and negative press this year when it was not deserved. Like, I just think that defense has actually been, I mean, you go look at each game, even other than the Wake Forest game, the defense has played relatively well considering what they've had to deal with. It's not easy when the offense goes 3 and out, or they have a bunch of bad possessions in a row. It's demoralizing to the defense. It's like at some point they get worn out. They're on the field. I mean, you look at the Clemson game, they just got worn out. I mean, they made plays. They made a play at the end of the Clemson game where they had the sack strip fumble, and then they gave out the drive. I just think they were done by that point. When a guy's pounding you 35 carries or whatever he had, Shipley or whatever, you can't just always just rely on Florida State's defense in the history is not made to be on the field a ton of plays. They're made on speed. They're undersized. They get after it. Effort. They're not Georgia's defense. They're not a defense that can take that pounding over and over. They're not an SEC defense, but there's negatives and positives with that. But when it's a positive and they're able to get after people, they have the athletes to get off the field quickly. And that's what you want is difference makers, whether it's Jalen Ramsey, you have number 11. I'm just calling him number 11 because that's what stands out is seeing that number fly up the field. But when you have difference makers, and that's what, Travis Hunter is going to be, it makes it a lot easier on an offense when, or a defense when the offense isn't just going 3 and out. They have a lot of wasted possessions in a lot of these games. And I think the defense gets a little up. It's demoralizing for a defense, especially.
Well, I think early on, though, Fish, it was a little bit warranted, especially early in the year, because we saw mistakes being made in blown coverages and blown gap assignments and things like it was things where there wasn't an understanding, right? Yeah. And that has totally shifted now.
But you've seen that less and less each week. It's
less
not
and
like
less, absolutely.
Every week from the Notre Dame game, you haven't seen that same bust on that tight end route.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I said what I said. We're seeing this defense grow up right before our eyes. We're seeing an understanding amongst the players about where they fit into the scheme and where their opportunities are to make plays. And so, Fuller gets a lot of credit for that. He got a lot of blame early. He should get credit for it now because there's definitely a greater understanding about what they're trying to do. And, we're not great athletes, but we're good enough athletes that we can make some things happen, as evidenced by the 3 turnovers we got. I mean, those were really athletic plays.
Yeah. Listen, the one thing that they're recruiting, whatever coach it is, and I remember talking to James Coley about this when Jimbo took over. I said to him, he's like, listen, it's a lot easier to change the defense than it is offense. We can change it quicker. I said, why? He goes, because you have athletes in the state of Florida. You could go out and get guys, even if they aren't the biggest or the strongest or the fastest. But if you could get guys that you have playmakers and you put them on that side of the ball, it's easier to switch that side of the ball. And you've seen that they have athletes. Maybe not all of them are great football players, but they have guys that can run. They don't have slow guys, especially in that back end. Jarvis Brownlee and these kids, they make mistakes, but they make them going fast. They're flying to the ball. and the effort's there, and you can put up with that if a guy gets beat on a play, but he's trying hard, and you have that effort. But I look at the defense. I think it's gotten a lot better every week. I think the defense has been a lot more consistent than the offense, though, and that's just my opinion. I mean, you guys may feel different, but that's my big takeaway from what I've seen the last 4 or 5 weeks. So
one of the things Fuller talked about today as far as the progress of the defense is communication. And like Mark said, understanding, concept of the defense and communicating among each other as to what to expect and what they're seeing, eye discipline and all that type of stuff. So I've seen the progress there, and I honestly think that they may have simplified it a little bit. I think some of the things they were trying to do early with a bunch of young freshmen and sophomores just they weren't getting any production out of it.
I'll tell you one thing that really sticks out too on the defensive side is their keys, their understanding of what's coming. We do a pretty good job of shutting down each team's best thing. I think our guys are doing a much better job preparing during the week, understanding when they're lined up like this and this personnel group, these are the plays they like, and we cover them pretty good. Whereas before, we knew it was coming based on, our watching a few clips during the week, we knew it was coming, and we still couldn't do much with it. But now, like last week against North Carolina State, they love to run those crossing routes. Man, we had those things covered up. Same thing here. They like to throw the ball vertically. And that's why they hurt us late with some of those arrow routes, with those backs. We were covering the stuff deeper, and they popped a couple of those arrow routes, those flat routes to the backs, and broke for a big play, and especially that last touchdown. And to your point, Jerry, Wally's saying the wheel routes there. But that's because we were taking away their best thing, and that was the thing. I'm sure they're saying, we'll rally to the ball, we'll make a tackle, and, they won't hurt us. And so, again, credit to Adam Fuller and those guys for coming up with a scheme and relaying that to the players and them being able to execute it.
All right. Well, in honor of Pat, we're going to say that's the end for the defense for now. They played complementary football. Pat loves that term, and I think Florida State did it quite well on Saturday. So as we move to the offense, one of my favorite things to say about this team is Florida State ran the damn ball. And that's what we had to see in this rivalry for years and years. Under Coach Bowden, under the great Miami teams, the team that ran the ball the best, the most efficient running team, at times the most explosive team, typically would win this game. Now, on Saturday, you look at the numbers. The numbers were not great by the end because you're taking out some sack yardage, a couple of negatives against Jordan Travis because that's the way it is. Florida State only averaged 3.3 yards per carry, but a lot of chunk plays in there when Florida State needed to run, seemed to have good success. The game plan was to run. Mark, what do you think about that, the overall theme of running on this night, even though Jordan Travis did the damage in the air as he did, especially late in the game?
Yeah. So how I feel about that. You have to have something to complement your running game, right? Either the passing game or the option. And in modern football, the option is the zone read with the quarterback or the RPO. And we incorporated a lot of that into our running game early. So that toss, that quick toss that we were running, there was also counter action for a quarterback counter to go with that. And so he had the option, it seemed to me. I don't know if it was called, one way or the other, or if he was actually reading the defensive end to either toss it or run the quarterback counter. And, so my point is we schemed to our strength. Our strength is a quarterback that's athletic, that can run, and he's our playmaker. And that threw Miami really off balance. And it helped open up some things in the passing game, as cliche as it is, even though you may not be getting yards in the running game, it's still going to affect the defense. So it's not the yards you get, it's the number of attempts, right? And if there's good balance there, your whole playbook is open to you because you have the threat of the run. And, I tell you what, sometimes we don't block everything perfectly, but Travis helps erase a lot of that. Corbin made a great run after the sack fumble. That was a great run. It was schemed to go inside, and he dipped it outside and outran the defense. Travis did some good things on that quarterback counter. It was really a really good schemed running game for what Miami was giving us. And when things did bog down, it bogged down because Miami did make an adjustment, right? They started stacking the box a little bit more, going single high safety and stacking the box a little bit more, and things bogged down a little bit. But that also opened up the things for later in the game when we threw that slot fade to Ja'Kai Douglas, there in that last drive. That was in man coverage, cover one, right? I mean, they got a safety on Ja'Kai Douglas, and he threw a beautiful ball, So all that play, you talk about the offense playing complementary football. They complemented itself, by trying to run the ball and running the ball.
All right, Jerry, Jordan Travis was back. It was very important to have him as a part of the running game. When Florida State looks good, it's because Jordan Travis is the quarterback, but the running game is working well around him. What was your view?
Well, I was going to say, Bob, that I thought Kenny Dillingham's comments today on Monday in the press conference were pretty interesting. Dillingham he believes in Travis. And in the press conference today, he talked about, I think they had about 12 audibles in that game that Travis made change plays at the line of scrimmage. And they weren't simple, pass run or run pass, whatever. That he's seeing the game now. It's his sophomore year, basically, as a starter. And he complimented him on his decision-making, his understanding of the game. And he was especially complimentary, Mark, of what you've been talking about, that the protection has been there, but for whatever reason, he hasn't stepped up in the box. He hasn't had the confidence, whether it be in the offensive lineman or the backs in a certain protection scheme, or in his own maybe reading of a possible blitz. But in that game, particularly on that 4th and 14, he stood in that. He went to his 4th read in the progression, 4th. And then made an excellent throw to Andrew. But that's the thing we're seeing, I think, a little bit more as he's getting older, is he's getting a little bit more confident as a quarterback. And I see some improvement there.
Jerry, the thing that stuck out to me about that 4th and 14 that I heard Kenny Dillingham talk about was that they ran that exact same play with that exact same guy against that look, and he completed the pass in practice. Right. And to me, that's the key. Pat Burnham likes to laugh at me when I say we have to learn to win, but that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. When I say learn to win, I don't mean, some esoteric concept about, intrinsically understanding what it takes to win football. I'm talking about when you go out and you develop good practice habits, that you got to take practice seriously. And then, you've got to execute the look you're going up against, and you understand, what you're trying to accomplish in practice. You build good habits. You build good habits on the field, off the field, your film study, all those things it takes to win football games. Those are habits that you have to develop. And it's also experience. You have to put yourself in these positions under the crucible of pressure when it counts. And and he's getting to the point now where he's getting some confidence in the things he's doing in practice, the things he's seeing in the game, seeing it and having the confidence to let it rip. That's a big step. It really is. And again, it's learning these things as we go along, and he's just going to keep getting better. And he's a weapon. Look, it was evident to me when I watched practice way early in the year that team responds to that kid, and he has confidence in his ability to lead the team. Now, his confidence in the passing game is growing too, and that could be a dangerous thing.
So, hey, Mark, to that point, though, you win a game over North Carolina, and that'll help your confidence a little bit. But when you're the man and you win the game against Miami, that's got to do wonders for his self-assurance that he can do this job.
I, of course, and even more than that, the rest of his teammates, right? It's going to give confidence to his coaching staff, to the rest of his teammates, wondering if he can do it. Well, he did it, right? He took us, we scored, 10 points in the fourth quarter to win the game. And, he led us down the field and did it.
Long drives too now.
Long drive. Well, yeah. The last one wasn't very long. I mean, it was a big play to Douglas, and then, the 4th and 14, but
we covered a lot of yards.
Yeah, definitely covered a lot of yards, but he did it. And that goes a long way, man. Long way.
Hey, and one other factor there, Bobby asked, what did I notice offensively? We had no Helton in this game. And that, the roles that Ja'Kai Douglas played in this game were significant. I mean, he had several big plays and critical moments. And he's a guy that has really hasn't gotten that many touches this year.
Yeah, I think
I bet he will now.
In practice.
Yeah.
I can't remember which day, Jerry, but I think with Keyshawn being out on Tuesday and Wednesday, we saw more of Ja'Kai. I was kind of curious, is that just a byproduct of Keyshawn being out, or does the staff really like Ja'Kai? And this is a guy who we could really see out there a lot on Saturday. And when he made that big play, it was almost like, hey, that's another spark. It was almost like the spark that Ja'Kai gave at Notre Dame. He's just that, not your prototypical receiver, but he gives you the spark that maybe just kind of energizes a drive. So
I found his quote interesting where he said on that route, he saw the ball coming. He just kept thinking, don't drop it, don't drop it, don't drop it. And, that's a freshman. A couple of years from now, he's going to be wanting the ball thrown to him, But those were some of the things that you overcome in the game that I thought were keys to why the offense was able to do what it did.
And we've been looking for guys to be dependable at receiver. I've been kind of knocking the receivers, and at times drops and consistencies have been an issue. And hey, in big moments, Ja'Kai Douglas was there. Andrew Parchment, play of his life, of his career. You can't take that away from him. I think, was that Kenny Dillingham who said that today? Nobody can take away Andrew Parchment's play and what he did on that 4th and 14 grab, because that was huge. That made the game there down the stretch. Okay, let's take a quick break here, 30-second break from our sponsor, Alumni Hall. We'll be right back.
Alumni Hall, where you'll find officially licensed FSU gear for the entire family, including brands like Nike and Champion, plus great gifts for your favorite Seminole and home decor too. Miss some of the old Seminole throwback logos? Check out our College Vault collection. Shop online at alumnihall.com and let our great customer sales team ship to you within days, or pick up in store in Tallahassee. You'll find us in the Miracle Plaza Shopping Center on Thomasville Road. Students and military get 10% off in store, and Osceola subscribers get 20% off in store and online with their digital membership cards. Alumni Hall.
All right, we're back. Mark Salvo, we got to talk offensive line. Pass protection was really good on Saturday. Jordan Travis was sacked 3 times. So I thought overall weathered the storm really well. There's a lot of banged up guys there on the offensive line, but Dylan Gibbons is playing through a lot. I know you like Murray Smith. Give us your view of the offensive line, just what they did to keep Jordan upright in the passing game going.
Yeah, I think this is definitely our best 5. These guys communicate well, and I'm going to tell you, we have, I think, 2 elite guys in Maurice Smith and Rob Scott. Rob Scott is a dang good offense. It's hard to believe he's really still just a freshman, right? You can count the COVID year last year. He's just a freshman. That guy's got, well, he'll probably have 2 years, right? And he is really, he's long, he's athletic. He rarely gets beat on pass protection, and the 3 guys in the middle really controlled their 3 in the middle. Sometimes we don't get in the best positions in the running game, but you know what? We do a lot of pulling, we do a lot of different things, They execute. Here's what you don't have. You don't have guys running free. You don't have guys not, at least not having a hat on them, whereas, last year, guys will just come running free. There'd be miscommunications and you have them, no, you got them, and then nobody blocks them. You don't see that anymore. But this 5 we have right now is the most efficient offensive line that we have. And, I feel pretty good when they're in the game.
All right. Well, we got Fish here. We got to go in on recruiting. We should say early signing period coming up pretty quickly. A month away, December 15th is when a lot of these guys will be deciding, again, more often than not in December than February now because of this new structure of the early signing period. Fish, the floor is yours. I'm going to kind of just leave it open-ended. I know how you feel about Armella and Jones Jr., but give us your overall recruiting thoughts at the moment.
I mean, the main thing was keeping the class together. They had 16 commitments. I know a couple kids decommitted. I think this win solidifies this class as far as not losing anybody else. They had some, they had Katron Allen, who I talked about him before. He's a running back out of IMG. He's committed to Penn State. I think there's a very good chance that James Franklin takes the USC job, and that makes a kid like that available. The kid's originally from Virginia, has played the last couple of years at IMG. I think he'd be a great addition. We've talked about this. They need a running back in the class. He gives them a natural running back. They also have the Javante Barnes kid was on campus for the FSU game. I had no idea that the kid's originally from Florida and has family that lives in Orlando. I saw that today. I think that's a big deal. He really likes Oklahoma, but I think Oklahoma already has like 2 of the top running backs already committed to them. There was a couple other kids on campus. Camden Brown, who was a wide receiver out of St. Thomas. He visited. I'm going to go by St. Thomas this week, talk to Coach Harriet about him and also Armella. I think they have a shot at flipping him. He was kind of quiet about his time at the game and everything, but I don't think that really means a lot. I think a lot of times these kids want to think about what happened and take everything in. And he's a Florida kid. I really think that 2 kids at FSU are going to have a legit shot at that. A lot of people wouldn't have believed this months ago is Earl Little Jr., who his father played at University of Miami. He's been heavily considered to be an Alabama lean, but Alabama just got another 5-star or commitment from a corner from California. They're going to. So I think Earl Little, I remember seeing Earl Little and his family at the Florida State camp this summer. They seem like they fit. Like he seems like a Florida State kid. If you meet him, he's just one of those kids that looks like he belongs at Florida State. The family seemed very comfortable. And the main kid that was on campus is Wesley Bassant. He's the linebacker. I think he's the number 1 linebacker in the state of Florida this year. I think he's a kid that's probably one of the best that's come out of the state in the last 10 years. He's a guy that could play corner and play linebacker. He's that athletic. He's a physical kid that will come up and smack you in the mouth. Wesley Bassant has been all Miami. And the one thing that has been helping Florida State is Randy Shannon and also Sabbath Joseph, who coached the kid last year at Miami Central. And I was told by somebody that is recruiting the kid at another school, they said, watch out for Florida State. And this is a rival school. So the guy had basically told me, listen, we're recruiting the kid. We want him, but don't be shocked if he ends up at Florida State. Randy's really got his hands and claws in that kid. Wesley will solve a lot of their linebacker issues they've had the last couple of years. He will be the best linebacker they've signed in 10 years. I think he's even better than Matthew Thomas, who I was really super high on. That never really panned out to the level he should have. But Wesley's also a really good kid. I think he'd bring a lot to that locker room. He will play and probably start next year as a freshman. I know that's hard to believe, but I think he's a smart enough kid to go in there and learn that defense and make an impact early on.
It's going to be an entertaining final month here as we move toward the early signing period. Let's transition quickly here. We'll wrap up with Pat's favorite segment. I think it's the ACC picks of the week. Jerry said he's done his homework. We're going to hit Jerry first here on the Thursday night game. It is Louisville at Duke.
I got Louisville.
Mark.
Well, yeah, that's an easy one. Louisville.
If you guys had said Duke, I'd definitely check it to see if you guys were on the sauce because
Pat
I've said
Duke last week.
Those two things are not mutually exclusive.
Duke is terrible. Pat should never listen. I learned one thing. I had a friend once. He told me his father, Florida State played Duke. I got to tell this story real quick. That his father, God bless, he died, but like Florida State was like a 49-point favorite. So he took Duke. He's like, there's no way Florida State. And it was 63-0 at halftime. And he was cussing in Spanish to his son. Like, what? How did a team get beat 63-0 at half? He goes, that's why they're Duke. This is the real Duke's back. This ain't the ACC team that went to the championship game against Florida State. Don't ever pick them. Miami will beat them, even if they're 5-6 going into that final game. Duke's not winning the rest of the year.
All right. Apologies, David Cutcliffe, but we move on to Saturday's games. All right. Big one. Wake Forest at Clemson. Jerry, what you got?
I've got Wake. I think Wake can score enough points and Clemson can't. I know Clemson's defense is great. It's going to hold Hartman maybe to fewer yards than he's used to, but I see Wake in that one.
All right, Mark, what you got?
I got Clemson at home. I think Clemson, a team like Wake Forest, will be disrupted with their athleticism and their scheme. I'm going to take Clemson at home.
All right,
can I change my pick?
No, they're locked in.
You can lock me in. I think Wake Forest is going to win. I think they'll end the winning streak there. One thing you need to go into Clemson and win there. That's a very experienced group at Clemson. They've been in these big games. I just think Cutcliffe has a team this year. It's amazing to say that Wake Forest is going to get. But Clausen has a great football team there this year, and he's got an older group that is experienced. I think that experience is going to show through. I just don't have enough faith in Clemson's quarterback for him to make enough plays. I think Hartman's going to.
They got athletes on defense.
No, I know they got athletes on defense, but Wake's still got us. If Wake scores over 20, they're winning the game. So I don't think Clemson's offense is going to score more than like 24 points. So it could be like a 31-24, but I got Wake Forest.
Okay. I'll take Wake Forest too. We'll skip Florida State, BC and come back to them at the very end here. Wofford at North Carolina. Safe to say we're all going Mac Brown Express here.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Georgia Tech at Notre Dame. Jared.
Notre Dame.
Mark.
Yeah, Notre Dame.
That's easy. Notre Dame.
All right. I'll go Notre Dame too. Virginia at Pitt.
We like Pitt.
Is this our running joke? I
got Jerry on the Pitt train, man. He likes the Panthers.
I don't know. They've been shaky last couple of weeks.
Yeah, but they still got the quarterback, and they got a good team. You're going to have ups and downs during the season. It's a long season, but they're at home, and they got the better quarterback. So I'm gonna go with Pitt.
Yeah, I am too.
That wasn't too. That was the man. If my wife was that easy, we'd be happy married.
All right.
TMI.
I was going to try to roll right along. Okay. Syracuse at NC State. Jerry?
You're looking at me, NC State.
Yeah. All right. Mark?
Yeah, as much as it pains me to say it's NC State, I can't stand those guys.
All right,
you can't go with your heart. You got to go with your head.
Yeah,
NC State, man.
Yeah, I think so too. NC State's going to bounce back from an emotional game against Wake there. All right, Virginia Tech at Miami. And who will be coaching Miami on Saturday?
Oh,
Jerry, what you got?
I think Virginia Tech. I have a feeling Miami might. I mean, I know they're not. Virginia Tech's not very good, but I suspect Miami's going to be kind of flat.
All right, Mark.
Oof. All the turmoil going on down there right now. Miami just lost their athletic director. I'm sure Manny's not far behind. There's a lot of distractions, and that doesn't make for a very good effort on Saturday. So I'm going to go Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Miami. I just think they got the better players, and they seem to play better. The last couple of games they've had at home, they seem to play better. as long as they don't go and just totally melt down and turn the ball over 10 times, I think they'll beat Tech.
Interesting. The thing is, as you guys speak to that, Miami has an odd reaction sometimes to adversity. We've seen them quit during the season, but we've also seen them lock arms. And if they think Manny's getting a raw deal down there,
the kids are fans of his, so I think they'll play hard for him, and they'll come through. They're still listen, Virginia Tech's on the same boat. Their coach is about to get fired too, so it's not like this is like who's going to get fired on Monday quicker. Fuentes his seat's been hot and scorching, and I spoke to the coach that coached there last year. He basically told me that they want to run him out of town, so he's not real popular. And I just think this is just the other shoe that's going to drop, and this will be probably one of his last games coaching at Virginia Tech.
Hey, so, Charles, let's flash back about 4 years ago, I guess it was. Yeah. A lot of our fans wanted him as a head coach.
Who, Fuentes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've met him before. He's just you need a little bit of everything when it comes to these coaches. It's not always the right fit. He was a very good coach at Memphis. He's a Texas guy. He had no roots in that's part of the country. And I think if he had gone to one of the schools in Texas, a Texas Tech or whatever, the results may have been different. He's just not very well liked by coaches and players. I was told most of the people in the administration do not like him. So it's not surprising.
All right, let's wrap it up. Florida State at Boston College. It's a noon game, ACC network. Jerry, do you have Florida State or BC?
Can I go after Mark this time?
All right, come on, man. Let's go, Mark.
No, I'm going to go out on the limb and say Florida State. If you don't know for sure, you might as well be a homer.
All right.
Yeah, Jerkovic is back, right? And early in the year, that when I watched that offense with him, they were pretty formidable. They were well coached on defense. It's I don't know what the weather's going to be like. It's cold as heck here in Nashville right now, and that will play a factor if we let it. It doesn't look all that and then the emotion of last week and all the pats on the back, do we learn anything from that? We don't seem to respond very well after that kind of success. So all that stacked against us, I'm not going Florida State.
All right.
Hey, Mark, a logical reason I picked Florida State in this game is if you can stop the run, you got a better chance against Jerkovic. It'll be sort of the same thing if we can get him off his spot, stop the run, get him off his spot. Yep. Our defensive front is pretty doggone good.
Yep.
They talked about that at the press conference Monday that we like a smash mouth game.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. Look, our defense is playing really well right now. Our defensive line is dominant. That is a good thing to go into a away stadium with. You want that defensive line in your back pocket. That's a good thing, right? And look, Miami's Van Dyke came into this game averaging 350 yards the last 3 or 4 games, and we shut them down. So I'm not saying it can't be done. I think maybe their coaching staff might be a little more adept at what they're doing than what Miami's was. And that kind of gives me a little bit of pause. No. But I think our defense, especially our defensive front, if they can dominate the game again and razz him up, yep. I kind of like our chances.
Yep. I'm a big fan of Jeff Hafley. I think the job he's done there at Boston College is a great job. Great. He's done a great job, and he will be up for other coaching jobs real soon. He's a hell of a recruiter. I've met him. He's, you saw ever since he's left Ohio State's defense has never been the same. They were unbelievable when he was there that 1 year. I looked up some stats because I wanted to see how they matched up. I was shocked to see that their pass defense is like 5th in the country is Boston College. And I think in scoring defense, they're like number 3 or 4 in the country. This is a very good defense. This was a game early in the year that concerned me because it was sandwiched between Miami and Florida. They spent a lot of emotion, and you see letdowns all the time. So I hate to be the bad guy. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Boston College will pull it out. I'd say 24-21 or 20, about that. And we'll have to get ready for the Gators the following week. But I'm going to pick Boston College.
All right. Well, then you don't go to the bowl game.
Hey, where are they playing it? If they're in Orlando, I'll go. I'm not going to
if you can't, by virtue of this pick, you are not allowed to go to the bowl game.
All right, it's okay.
But if Florida State goes to Shreveport, we are sending fish to Shreveport. Okay.
if you guys pay for it, I'll go. I mean, what the heck, man?
You mean Shreve Pit? Right?
I'll find something to do. They got to have a casino there, right?
They do. They do.
All right. Well.
All right. I'll go with Florida State, but I'm a reluctant Florida State guy. Like you said, fish sandwiched between 2 emotional games, and you have to bring your emotion to BC because it's kind of a different crowd. Noon up there, cold day.
I do think Florida State has to get off to a good start. You don't want to see a slow start in a game like this because it is going to be cold. It's going to be like it's the emotions. It's hard to get those emotions going after such an emotional game last weekend.
So, Fish, since you've studied the stats, how are they against the run?
Now they're terrible against the run. They're like 97th in the country. So Florida State should be able to run the football.
Well, that's why they're bad at the pass. Everybody runs the ball on them. Nobody's throwing it.
Hey, listen, I'm just telling you what the stats are. I mean, everybody's an analytic guy now. You know, the stats. I just wanted to look at it today to see where the strengths are. But Florida State's strength is running the football, and their weakness is rushing rush defense. So, I mean, they're going to have to make some plays, though. And I think that Boston College, though, passing offense with the tight end and FSU's kind of weakness at linebacker, they're going to try to exploit that. And you know how Boston College is. Like, they're just one of those teams that they could take your will in games because of the style of play. They're going to listen. They're not going to take chances, and they're going to try to get to the fourth quarter. And FSU needs to be patient and not try to be over aggressive and make mistakes because that plays into Boston College's hands. I just think they're one of those teams that I don't think teams like to play because they're the old school football. So
give you one last chance to change your pick, Fish.
I'm fine. It's okay. I'll be the bad guy in this group. Everybody hates me anyway, so it's all good.
All right, we'll wrap it up with another one of Pat's favorites. We got to pick who's going to be in Charlotte, the Atlantic champion. It could be Wake Forest or Clemson. NC State still got a decent shot. On the coastal side, Pitt or Virginia. Jerry, who do you feel about winning the Atlantic and the coastal?
I like Pitt and Wake. I'm going to stick with them.
It's going to be decided this weekend then because Pitt plays Virginia and Wake plays Clemson. So I'm going with Pitt and Clemson. Wake. So.
All right, Mark.
I'm going to go Pitt and Clemson.
Okay.
Yeah, if you pick Clemson in this game, you have to almost pick that.
Yeah.
Right?
That was kind of my thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like what Dave Clawson has done. I'm going to echo Charles, what he said on Clawson's coaching job in Winston-Salem. I think it's gone very underrated this year. And Pitt.
I think Clawson's going to be up for a job this year. I'm not saying he'll leave Wake Forest, but if you're one of these schools, especially like a TCU or one of these private schools that has a lot of money, and you see what he's done at Wake Forest, you have to seriously consider this guy as a head coaching candidate,
The appreciation for him is more significant outside of Winston-Salem than maybe locally what he's done.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. We appreciate you listening to us. Kept the seat warm for Pat for next week when he gets back. Just a reminder, thank you for listening. But also, if you want to be an Osceola subscriber, jump on in, go to theosceola.com, 20% discount when you use the code FSU20. If you are already a subscriber, we thank you again for reading and listening, and invite a friend, invite somebody to join us to the site. join our message board and talk and chat with us and your friends within the Florida State community. We thank you guys for joining us. And Mark, you know what to do.
Help them.
This has been another edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. To subscribe to the Osceola, go to theosceola.com. Go Noles!